If you could become a superhero right now, who would you be? If you could model yourself after the people that most inspire you, how would you reshape yourself? Basking in the glow of heroism, standing on the shoulders of past generations, Miles Morales finds himself as the one and only Spider-Man. Completely original, yet like so many others. Sampling and remixing the influences of heroes and loved ones until he finds his own inspiring, heroic identity deep within the Spider-Verse. Sony Pictures Animation's 2018 film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has all the hallmarks of a coming-of-age origin of a superhero story, but collides them with interdimensional travel and the fight to forge your own identity. The result is something excitingly fresh and original. Through visual and musical style, narrative themes, and most crucially, through the character of Miles Morales, Spider-Verse teaches a powerful message of taking the many different positive influences in your life, and instead of rejecting them or having them completely drown out your own voice, remixing them to make something completely unique and beautiful that is utterly true to who you are.
Like, what's up, danger?
In Spider-Verse, we find teenager Miles Morales, growing up in a New York watched over by Spider-Man and feeling out of place at Vision's Academy. Normal high school problems get much more complicated when he's bitten by a radioactive spider and left as the city's only hero when Peter Parker is killed by the Kingpin while trying to stop a dangerous interdimensional portal. Suddenly, Miles is the only Spider-Man, but finds help in several different spider people who have been pulled into his dimension. Most importantly, the slightly over-the-hill Spider-Man Peter B. Parker and the young Spider-Woman Gwen Stacy. With their help, Miles must learn to become his own hero and realize that while he's not alone in his struggles, it's what makes him different that makes him Spider-Man. As a story, writers Phil Lord and Rodney Rothman have Into the Spider-Verse take a little bit of several different comic books to form its narrative of identity and heroism. Of course, there's the core of Miles Morales and his family that comes from writer Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli's alternate universe Ultimate Spider-Man, where the young hero gains his powers after Peter Parker's heroic death in 2011. Then there's the 2012 crossover miniseries Spider-Men, which saw the mainstream Earth 616 Peter Parker cross over to the Ultimate Universe and help shape Miles' path as a hero. And there's the 2014 Spider-Verse event, which brought together dozens of alternate universe spider people to help save the multiverse. Mixing and remixing these with an original story turns Miles' origin into a tightly focused tale that is ultimately about one young man finding his own distinctive identity across countless universes. It's said that the most universal stories are rooted in specificity, and in becoming more and more detailed and focused on a unique experience, the message becomes more and more relatable to everyone who watches. The heroic journey of Miles Morales is unique to who he is, the challenges he overcomes, the hero he grows to be, the influences that forge his identity. Only Miles can be this Spider-Man. But the paradox is that in his total originality that results in familiar heroism, we see that anyone can be Spider-Man.
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Miles' race isn't an explicit focus in the film. No one calls out the idea of a person of color being Spider-Man, but his culture inherently shapes his personality. No low-key whitewashing of character here. Miles is an iconic figure, and there are many small details that pay tribute to other people of color, like Jackie Robinson, who wore the number 42, a figure that pops up multiple times, or Michael Jordan, whose shoes Miles turns into an iconic part of his look. So much can be said about the visual style of Spider-Verse, and so much already has. But what matters most is that this film's utterly original look was in service to making the film feel as close as possible to the comic books and street art that inform the story. Ben-Day dots and halftones evoke the early art of Steve Ditko in an era where comics were short on colors. The bold and expressionate yet still grounded human figures evocative of Sarah Pichelli, who co-created Miles. The film is littered with comic book visual references and Easter eggs for past films that show just how much directors Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman, art directors Dean Gordon and Patrick O'Keefe, and the entire team cared about this world and the decades of comics history that informed it. There was something we liked about the specific styles in the artwork that we wanted to make part of this movie, said VFX supervisor Danny Dimian. It brought a sense of wonder and gives you a feel for the hand of the artist and its imperfections. That's how we did the line work, embracing the hand-drawn look instead of a clean, mechanical look. The visual influences even extend beyond superhero stories. Spider-Ham homages Pigs as Pigs. Noir pulls from John Paul Leon black and white crime comics. Penny brings in cues from Kill la Kill. Blend these inspirations with the decades of comics that influence the overall style of the film, and you get remixes of remixes, transmuting homage into complete originality. Our design ideology, when looked at under a microscope, is a mix of all these different people's tastes and opinions, said O'Keefe. You'd hand the painting off to somebody, and that would come back, and you'd want to build on top of that. Throughout every step of the way, personal touches were being added, and that's what makes it, at least in my mind, very unique. The hyper-colored, frenetic, beautiful world of Spider-Verse pours into the mind of Miles Morales, and what comes out of him is a new source of inspiration for audiences. Miles is very intelligent. That's obvious from his time at school, but he's also artistic, expressing himself through sketches, stickers, and tags. His artistry is a way of finding himself. What's cool with the stickers too, said Rothman, is that they literally say, "My name is." It very uniquely set up Miles as someone who was still searching for himself and his identity, and was almost trying out different versions of who he was, graphically, on these stickers. The combination of Miles' creative spirit and comic book world are reflected in the explosions of spray paint meet Kirby crackle color that pulls through the frame when the collider is turned on, or the neon highlights of the city at night, or how the lines in people's faces feel sketched on with a marker. These touches are, undoubtedly, extremely cool just by themselves, but when put in the context of Miles' artistic streak, they align design with character. The choices that Miles makes, the things that he creates, the person that he becomes, they make a difference in the world. He is also a product of this world, as is each spider hero a product of their own. That's why character and world design coincide. By consciously embracing his identity, Miles gains agency and influences the world back. It just takes a while for him to figure out who he is to do so. Miles is biracial, Black and Puerto Rican cultures influencing his worldview and style. His identity as Spider-Man is multidimensional, taking inspiration and strength from heroes from different universes to form his own. Even without all the interdimensional threats and superheroics, Miles is already a man of many worlds. Code switching on the way to school and speaking multiple languages both at home and in the streets, Miles' biracial identity already has him balancing several different selves. Throw in a police officer father, an influential uncle with a shady past, and being new in a school that's completely different from his everyday life. And it's no wonder why Miles is searching for his own unified identity while being pulled between so many different influences. The importance of Miles' Afro-Latino heritage has been there from the start. Miles is a growing accumulation of a mixed-race household, said creator Brian Michael Bendis. That is a vibrant and fascinating part of any one individual. You could have two kids growing up in the same house and have completely different relationships to their cultures. Miles, in my eyes, is just discovering his. Living in a comic book world and suddenly being turned into a superhero takes these identity struggles and writes them large across a multiversal canvas. Add in yet another challenge, honoring the legacy of Spider-Man, and Miles' identity struggles become even more complex.
They're counting on me.
Probably not you specifically. I think it's a metaphor.
It's not that Miles has no personality on his own or lacks in his own unique strengths. Instead, Spider-Verse is the story of a young man who finds direction and support when he needs it most and, in the end, grows into the hero that only he could be. Being able to internalize so many different influences is a journey in and of itself because, for the vast majority of Spider-Verse, Miles is burdened by them. He fears that he can't live up to the nearly perfect Spider-Man of his own universe, or the heroism of the many alternate dimension heroes that show up to help, or to his own parents' expectations of him even without the spider powers. Great expectations? No expectations? Learning to be Spider-Man means taking a great responsibility and figuring out how to carry it in your own unique way. As Miles' journey exposes him to many different inspirations, we see our burgeoning hero intersect in ways that spark change and growth. Miles takes inspiration from each character and makes them his own, remixing and reworking until they are equally his.
You gotta go home, man.
Uncle Aaron wants Miles to be his own man, bold, confident, artistic, even if that means breaking the law. Aaron doesn't want Miles to be a criminal like him, but he's not as bound to the rules as Miles' father, Jefferson, who deeply cares about his son, but is having an incredibly hard time connecting with him. Jefferson wants Miles to stay focused on school, his everyday life, and let the potential in him grow.
I love you, Miles.
Yeah, I know, Dad. See you Friday.
You gotta say I love you back.
Dad, are you serious?
On the spider side, Peter B. Parker has the greatest influence, becoming the reluctant mentor he never wanted to be, but the experience helps him get out of the rut he's been stuck in for some time.
Me as the teacher who could still do it. You as the student who can do it, just not as good. I'm proud of us.
Web swinging, fighting, anticipating his enemies' moves, they all come from this slightly schlubby Spider-Man. Gwen gives Miles grace and determination in ways the worn-out Peter couldn't. They're more like peers, with Spider-Woman still much further along in her own heroic journey. Connecting with Miles opens her up again to connections she'd cut off. And while Penny, Noir, and Spider-Ham have less time to bond with Miles, they show him that he's not alone in his fight.
We've all been there. You know, for me, it was my Uncle Ben.
For me, it was my Uncle Benjamin.
For me, it was my father.
For me, it was my best friend.
To be Spider-Man is to struggle, to shoulder burdens that few can understand, but to rise up and inspire others because of your fight. Miles, Peter, and Gwen inspire each other to be the best Spider-Man or woman they can be. It culminates in two critical moments where Miles fully embraces who he truly is. One is the assertion of his identity, the other, saving the day by being himself. Throughout much of Spider-Verse, Miles is stunted by his fear. He can't control his powers. He can't fight. It's hard for him to take action. It's no surprise that his fellow heroes leave him behind when it's time for the final battle. He's probably a liability, and they're worried he'll get himself killed. In the aftermath of Aaron being murdered by Kingpin when protecting Miles, our hero is reeling from finding out the uncle he idolized was the criminal, the Prowler, and he simply doesn't know what he can do as his own man. It's a crossroads for Miles, and a moment when his father supports his son in the ways he needs most, even if he doesn't realize exactly what Miles is experiencing.
I see this spark in you. It's amazing. It's why I push you, but it's yours. Whatever you choose to do with it, you'll be great.
Up until this moment, Miles has wanted to do the right thing, but his fear has held him back. In a leap of faith, with love and support, he becomes his own hero, putting on his own costume, and literally pushing past the fear that keeps him stuck and grounded.
That's all it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
Like, what's up, danger?
Running, swinging, scrambling, Miles rises. 100% his own man, and 100% his own Spider-Man by the end of this instantly iconic scene, because he's remixed his many different influences into his own identity. Even Miles' costume is the culmination of multiple influences. The fabric of his universe's lost Spider-Man, the graffiti style encouraged by Aaron, and Miles' own streetwear. It's really gorgeous, efficient storytelling told in a single look. Musically, Miles' rise as a hero is scored by several different sonic sources. Of course, there's What's Up Danger by Blackway and Black Caviar.
What's up, danger?
Then there's the hip-hop symphony that composer Daniel Pemberton uses to illustrate the multiverse. And finally, there's the haunting music cue used for most of the film to signal the arrival of the Prowler, now used to announce Miles' arrival as a hero. It's still bold and aggressive, but given a heroic bent that makes this scene the ultimate culmination of self-empowerment and self-actualization. Miles' rise as Spider-Man is about embracing fear, being empowered by danger, all because the people you love have given you the courage to become the hero only you can be. Miles is truly Spider-Man in this moment, completely original, but also the result of countless positive influences. With Miles in full control of his identity and powers, he saves the day by stopping the Collider and Kingpin, sending his fellow heroes home and inspiring them to reaffirm their own identities as Spider-Men and women. And it's all done with grace, wit, style, and a finish that tributes Uncle Aaron that is cheered on by his father.
Hey.
With New York saved and his fellow heroes returned to their dimensions, Miles is off on his own, rising, always and forever rising, as the one and only Spider-Man. Father and uncle, Peter and Gwen, Black and Latino, Miles is all of these things at once, and so much more. There are no others like him in the countless realities that make up the Spider-Verse. In this, we find that anyone can become Spider-Man. Like Miles, you too can find the utterly original, powerful hero within.